Facebook page. This is a little bit of an unusual time. It's Friday about noon, but quite honestly, it's about the only time I've had lately, so I figured I'd make the best of it. And like everything, if you can't see this live, you'll be able to see it in recording. But I just want to take a moment because this is Heart Health Month in February, and I wanted to just take a very quick moment to tell you a little bit about inflammation and how critical that is to your overall health and wellness. We hear about inflammation a lot today because of COVID. We know that generally inflammation is a good thing. It helps protect us against infection and problems associated when we get scrapes and bumps, but a overactivation of the inflammatory system is really becoming the common thread for many chronic illnesses like heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and Alzheimer's. So it's critically important that you reduce the inflammatory overload that exists in many of us today. So I want to take just a minute and give you some quick pointers about how to reduce inflammation in your system and why that's so critical and so important. First of all, we always start with nutrition. That's where everything should begin. So to reduce the inflammation that exists in your system, and there's ways we can test for that. We'll spend a whole another time on the different tests that we can do for that. But just for the time being, I want to give you some very quick, pragmatic ways to reduce inflammation. Number one, obviously, we want to eat more fruits and vegetables. That's not a surprise to anybody because one of the major things that fruits and vegetables contain are the omega-3 fatty acids, and they're probably the best natural antioxidants, anti-inflammatory. Those are kind of synonymous terms. Addition of things like grapes and celeries and blueberries and garlic and olive oil and green tea and even some spices like ginger and rosemary and turmeric. Here's one you'll probably like, dark chocolate. It needs to be about 72% or greater cacao, which sometimes add a lot of bitterness to it. But even some other supplements like melatonin and berberine and beet extract and turmeric and omega-3 fatty acids, as I already mentioned. Now those are the good things. What are the bad things? Well, things you want to avoid are a lot of highly saturated fat red meats. We know that anything with trans fats, and luckily those are becoming less and less in a lot of foods. However, you still have to be smart and check labels. So you want to avoid anything with trans fats like margarines or corn oil or certainly deep fried foods. And quite honestly, most processed foods. The farther it is from its natural occurring state, the less nutritious and generally the more inflammatory it is. The second thing you want to pay attention to is sleep. You want to get at least 7 to 8 hours of restful sleep at night. That's how your body rejuvenates and recovers. And the sleep is very important. People who have less than 6 hours sleep on a regular basis have much heightened inflammatory state in their system, which contributes to all these other metabolic issues. Aerobic exercise, I've mentioned this multiple times. People who exercise for about 2.5 hours a week, which is not that much, a half hour a day, have generally lower inflammatory markers in their system than those who are more sedentary. So make time to be active. We know that people who are overweight have a higher inflammatory overload because fat cells produce excess inflammatory markers. So not necessarily losing weight, but losing body fat is quite important. And obviously, we've talked about stress. Managing stress is critical, whether you do that through your finding your happy place, meditation, prayerful concentration, music, exercise, whatever it is that helps reduce stress. There's a lot of apps now that are available for quieting the brain and helping to reduce acute stress. We know that the more stress you're under, the more cortisol you produce on a long-term basis, the higher your inflammatory titer in your tissues. And here's one that's kind of surprising to a lot of folks. You want to maintain good oral health. There's a number of studies now that suggest that any type of gum disease, gingivitis, or tooth decay, or oral issues related to the tongue or the gums sets up a chronic inflammatory state in the body. So you want to pay attention to your dental hygiene and dental care to reduce your inflammation. And then obviously you want to be careful of your alcohol intake. We know that excessive alcohol causes a lot of problems way beyond inflammation, but we know moderate alcohol intake, which is generally 1 glass of wine for a female and 2 for a male, actually may have some potential antioxidant, anti-inflammatory properties. So those are just some very quick hitting, this is very brief, but I wanted to give you some very quick hitting, pragmatic ideas to help reduce overall body inflammation. Do your research, learn more about what inflammation is and how it can help, especially in February with Heart Healthy Month. We generally now know that heart disease at its very core is a disease of excess inflammation. So until we see you next time, make healthy choices.